Hello everyone, my name is Tyra the Stitcher. In this video, we're going to be making a Lover Girl beanie, which has a series of heart cutouts in it that I think are super cute. This is a great intermediate project, especially for Valentine's Day or for any occasion. The materials that you will need is category 6 yarn, a 6mm hook. I would actually suggest using a 5mm hook instead of a 6mm hook because at the end when I finished my beanie, it wasn't as snug as I wanted it to be. So if you want your hat to be tighter than how it is in the previous video, then I would suggest that you use a 5mm hook instead of a 6mm hook and a darning needle. So to start, we're going to take our hook and we're going to make a magic ring. And then we're going to chain 2 after that. After we chain 2, we're going to place 3 half double crochet inside of the magic ring. Two and 3. So after that, we're going to do a picot stitch. So in order to do the picot stitch, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Then we're going to slip stitch back into this last stitch that we just did. So in order to complete a half double crochet, we have 3 loops on our hook, and then we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. So we have those 3 loops right here, 1, 2, 3. But in order to do our picot stitch, we're just going to place our hook into the top 2 and then slip stitch in there. So this is what our picot stitch should look like. After that, we're going to place 3 more half double crochet in the magic ring and then place another picot stitch. Then we're going to do that pattern for 3 more times. So half double crochet 3 times and then a picot stitch. I've just completed my picot stitch. Now I'm going to slip stitch in the first stitch that we did in the round, which is this one right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, so that's the first one. So we're going to slip stitch in there and then just pull the end of the magic ring to close it. Next, to start round 2, we're going to slip stitch to the next stitch so that we're in the middle. So now that we're in the middle, you can see we have 1, 2, 3. We're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we're going to slip stitch in the second stitch from the hook, which is this one right here. After that slip stitch, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to locate the middle stitch after the next picot stitch, which is this one right here. So in between each picot stitch, we have 3 half double crochet. So we have 1, 2, 3. So we're going to find the middle one. Here's mine. And then we're going to slip stitch in there. And then we're going to do that until we reach this point right here. And we're going to slip stitch into that when we end it. So we're going to place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains. Slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to locate the middle stitch in between the next 2 picot stitches, which is this one, and then slip stitch. And then we're going to keep on doing that, and then I'll meet you at the end. I'm doing my last point or heart bottom, I guess you could call it, and I've gone all the way to the end. So what I'm going to do is slip stitch in the same stitch that we started in, which is the middle half double crochet. and then do a slip stitch in there. To start the next row, we're going to slip stitch 5 times until we get to the top. And then that should bring us to the top right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. So now we're at the top of this point. You can see we have like little hearts already, but collectively it kind of looks like a star or a flower, but these are our little hearts. So we've created 5 already. So the next part is to create the top parts of the heart in our next round. To do that, we're going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then from the 3rd stitch from the hook, this one right here, we're going to slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 5. Then we're going to slip stitch into the top point of the next heart, like so, and then place a slip stitch. Next, we're going to do another picot stitch. So we kind of did it here, but on chains. So we're going to do that again. So we're going to chain 2 and then slip stitch back into that same stitch at the bottom. Then we're going to continue that pattern by chaining 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then slip stitching into the 3rd stitch from the hook. Then chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to pick that up. And as you're doing this, make sure that you're going in the same direction each time, because when I was doing this, sometimes I would end up flipping it by mistake. So make sure that the end of your yarn and the wrong side is always facing away from you, because you don't want to like end up going backwards, because sometimes it can be kind of confusing. So we want to slip stitch into this next point, which is this one right here. So I'm going to do a slip stitch. And then we do a picot stitch by chaining 2 and then going back in that same point that we just slip stitched to again. And then we're going to continue that same pattern and then keep on doing that until you reach the end right here. I've reached the end, so we're going to slip stitch into the stitch that we started at. And then we're going to do a final picot stitch. 1, 2, and then slip stitch back in that same stitch. This is what we should have currently. We should have 10 picot stitches, and next we're going to do the bottom part of each of the hearts. So we're going to slip stitch 2 times, so up the chains that we first created in the beginning. So chain 1 and then chain 2. So you can see that we're in the middle of these 2 picot stitches. Now we're going to chain 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then from the second chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch and then chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, we're going to locate the next 2 picot stitches, and we're going to find the stitch that is in the middle of both of those. If we count, we have 1, 2, 3. So this is the middle one. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, and at the 3rd one, we're going to slip stitch into there. So we just completed a heart. Next, we're going to do another one. We're going to chain 6 again. And and then slip stitch into the second chain from the hook, chain 4, and then we're going to locate the next 2 picot stitches again. Here are mine, and we're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain that's in between the both of them. And then we're just going to complete that pattern. So chaining 6, slip stitching into the 2nd chain from the hook, chaining 4, and then locating the next 2 picot stitches, and then slip stitching into the 3rd stitch from the next picot stitch. So just continue doing that until we reach the end. So this is what I currently have, and then this part right here is the end that we're going to reach. So make sure you keep track of like what the rows look like. So this is the 1st row, this is the 2nd row, this right here is the 3rd row, and then we're working on the 4th rows right here. So it's like a series of triangles that it looks like, and then I'll meet you when I reach the end, which is right here, to complete the last heart, and then this is our first heart here. I reached the end of the round, and your piece should look like this. Next, we're going to slip stitch all the way until you reach the point. So that should be 6 slip stitches. So I've reached the top. We're going to start by making the top parts of the heart, so similar to what we did here, but it's going to be a little bit different. So we're going to chain 3, then we're going to chain 1 more, and then from the 2nd chain in the hook, we're going to slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 1 more, and we're going to do a reverse slip stitch. So we're crocheting in this direction. So next we're going to turn our hook around in the opposite direction, and we're going to place our hook in the same stitch that we just slip stitched into. So this is our first chain right here. So this is where we're going to slip stitch into, the same one that we already did, and we're going to go backwards and put our hook in there, and then yarn over again like so, and then pull through both those loops to make a slip stitch. So this is what it should look like. You have like these 2 kind of like picot stitches on top of each other, and your hook and your loop should be on this side, but we're trying to go in this direction, so we have to slip stitch on to the other side. So just find a loop that's on the other side, like over here. So I'm gonna go into this loop right here, which is, like I said, on the other side, so we can continue as before. So I'm going to go in there and then slip stitch, and this is what it should look like. So it's attached to this chain 3, and we have this like section right here going up and down. Then we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then slip stitch at the top point, the next top point. So we started from this point, and we're going to go to this next one right here, and then slip stitch into that one. And then we're going to continue that pattern. So we're going to chain 3, chain 1 more, and then in the 2nd chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch, chain another one, and then we're going to do a reverse slip stitch. So we're going to turn around, locate our chain. So that's our chain right here. that we just did, and this is the stitch that we just slip stitch into. So we're going to go back into there, yarn over, and pull through both of those to make a slip stitch. So we're on the wrong side, so we need to just find a loop on the opposite side to slip stitch into. And then we'll be on the correct side. Then we're going to chain 3 and then find the next point, which is this one right here, and then slip stitch into that. So we're going to continue doing that until we reach the end. So from the first point that we started at, we want to do that until we reach all the way to the end, and then I'll meet you there. So now I've reached the end, and I'm going to slip stitch back in the stitch that we started at. So the top part right here, we're going to slip stitch in there to finish that last row. Now for the next row, we're already in the middle, so we don't need to slip stitch to the middle. So here we're going to chain 7. And then in the second chain from the hook, we're going to slip stitch. Then we're going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to slip stitch right at the top of this point right here. So directly on top where we previously slip stitched, so we're going to slip stitch into that point where we already slip stitched. So here you could see we just completed a heart, and because we did the double like picot on top of each other, we have a heart right here, and then we have a heart on top of it. So we're going to continue doing that. So chain 7. And then in the second stitch from the hook, which is this one right here, we're going to slip stitch and then chain 6. And then right on top where that point is, we're going to slip stitch. And then we're going to start that pattern over again. So I just chained 7 in the second stitch from the hook. We're going to slip stitch and then chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then slip stitch right there. And then you keep on doing that until you reach the end right here, and you should have 10 hearts, I think. I reached the end, and now I'm just going to slip stitch into this spot right here. So we've just ended that row, and this is what the piece should look like. So we should have like a series of hearts up and down, and the hearts will look more pronounced when you wear it, like when it's actually like stretched out on your head, but you can kind of see the hearts here. So we're going to complete the last row by slip stitching all the way to the top point once again. Now we're going to complete our last row. Now that we're at the top point, we can finally complete our last row. So in order to do that, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, chain 1 more, and then we're going to do a reverse slip stitch like how we did before. So like I said before, we're going in this direction. So we're going to turn around and then place our hook in the second stitch from our hook, yarn over again, and pull through 2. So this time we don't have to slip stitch to the other side because we're already on the correct side. And we're going to chain 3 more, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to find the next point and then slip stitch into that. Now we're going to do the same thing. 2, 3, chain 1 more, and then we're going to do a reverse slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. So go backwards and put it in that loop, yarn over, and pull through both to complete that slip stitch, and chain 3 more. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next point that we see. So we came from this point and we're going to slip stitch into this next point. And as you're doing this, you want to make sure that your chains aren't twisted. So make sure that they're facing the correct direction. So these little like reverse picot stitches, I guess you could call them, should be facing inward. So make sure that they're facing the correct direction. So we're going to continue that. 1, 2, 3, chain 1 more, and then do a reverse slip stitch in the second chain from the hook again. Put it through. So we're going to put it through this stitch, yarn over, pull through both of them, and then chain 3 more, and then find the next point and then slip stitch into that. And then you're going to continue that until you reach the end. And your hat should be like folding down right now. Like it shouldn't be fully flat. And that's what we want because it's supposed to be a hat. And then I'll meet you at the end. I reached the end once again. So this is my 10th time doing this, and you can see that I already have one right here. So I don't need to make another one. So I'm going to try to find where the point is, once again, where we started off, and then place my hook there and then place my last slip stitch. Then you could chain 1 and then cut. Next, you could use a darning needle to sew in this end right here, and then also the one in the middle after you pull it, and then you'll be finished with your hat. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you had any questions or any feedback, feel free to comment in the video below any questions and I will clear them up for you. But I hope you enjoyed this pattern. Check out my other patterns, especially for Valentine's Day. I've been grinding really hard to get those out to you. So I hope you really enjoyed it, and bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.